Good evening and welcome to the Standing Resolution, the show where big ideas get the cross-examination they deserve. Tonight's question has been rattling around since at least the 15th century, and it has not gotten any easier to answer. Rulers have risen and fallen on their instincts about it. Organizations have thrived and collapsed because of it, and dinner tables have been ruined by arguments over it for generations. The resolution before us tonight is this: it is better for a leader to be feared than to be loved. Now, before anyone reaches for their Machiavelli, a word about how we operate here. Our two debaters did not choose their positions. Each was assigned a side, and each has agreed to argue it with full conviction regardless of their personal views. That is the discipline this show demands, and frankly, it tends to produce better television than simply letting people say what they already believe. On one side, we have a debater who will argue in favor of the resolution that fear, not love, is the more reliable and effective foundation for leadership. On the other side, a debater who will argue against it, that love, or at the very least something closer.
Let me tell you something about love. Love is a fair-weather sail. It fills beautifully when the wind is warm and the prize is fat and the rum holds out. But the moment the storm hits, the moment the hold is empty and the men are hungry, and there is a faster ship on the horizon with more guns than you, love goes slack. And a slack sail will not save you. I have sailed with men who would have died for their captain in port, sworn it on their mothers' graves, and I have watched those same men go cold and calculating the instant conditions changed. Because love, when it is tested, reveals itself for what it often is: convenience wearing a sentimental coat. Fear is different. Fear is honest. A man who is afraid of consequences does not need to like you to obey you. He does not need to be in a good mood. He does not need to feel that you have earned it today, specifically after last Tuesday's argument. He calculates, and he concludes that the cost of crossing you exceeds the benefit. That calculation holds in a squall just as well as in a calm. Now, I am not talking about cruelty for its own sake. A captain who flogs men for sport breeds hatred, and hatred is its own kind of mutin.
Captain Roon speaks well of storms. I have sailed through a few myself, though mine were rather colder, and the ships had oars. So let me speak plainly about fear, because I know it too. Fear works. I will grant you that much. A man who fears the axe will lift his shield when you command it, but here is what I have learned from 30 years at the prow of a longship. Fear works right up until the moment it stops working. And when it stops all at once, like ice giving way beneath an army. A feared leader is always one bad season from disaster, one lost battle, one empty raid, one winter where the gold giving dries up and the men start asking themselves, quietly by the fire, what exactly are we afraid of again? The answer comes back: nothing we cannot solve with a knife in the dark. And then your feared leader is simply a dead leader with a short saga. A loved leader, a leader whose men have sworn oaths not out of terror, but out of genuine loyalty, men who believe their chief is worth following into the teeth of the world. That leader has something no amount of intimidation can manufacture. He has men who will hold the shield wall when the odds are terrible, not be.
Both sides have drawn their lines, and I will say this: a sea captain and a Viking chieftain agreeing that fear works is either the beginning of a beautiful friendship or the setup for a very dangerous alliance. Stay with us. When we come back, the rebuttals arrive, and that is where the comfortable arguments tend to get a little less comfortable. Welcome back. I'm Justice Vale, and you're watching The Standing Resolution, where tonight we're asking whether it is better for a leader to be feared than to be loved. Both sides have made their opening case. Now it's time for the rebuttals, where things tend to get considerably less polite.
Jarl Havard speaks beautifully about torches and legends, and I mean that sincerely. But legends are written after the fact by survivors about the leaders who happen to win. We do not hear the sagas of the loved chieftains who lost the shield wall because their men felt, in that particular frozen moment, that the odds were simply not worth the loyalty. He says fear fails when the bad season comes. I say love fails first. Love requires the leader to keep delivering warmth, gold, good rating, a full belly, a sense that following this man is still rewarding. The moment that stops, love renegotiates. Fear, by contrast, is about what happens if you leave, not about what you are currently receiving. Those are very different calculations, and one of them is far more durable in hard times. Now his point about the knife in the dark, that is real, I will not dismiss it. A feared leader who is nothing but feared is indeed a dead man walking. But notice what he is actually describing there, a leader who has only fear and nothing else. That is not the argument I am making. I am saying fear must be the foundation, because it is the one that does not depend on the leader's current run.
Captain Roon is a clever man, and he has just done something clever. He told you that a purely feared leader is a bad model, and then he asked you to imagine a better version, fear as foundation, with perhaps a little warmth on top. But notice what he smuggled in there. The moment you add loyalty, trust, willing sacrifice on top of that foundation, you are no longer talking about fear doing the work. You are talking about love doing the work, with fear lurking in the basement. That is not a foundation. That is a dungeon. He says love renegotiates when the luck runs out. I say he has confused love with admiration, and those are not the same thing. Admiration follows fortune, yes. But genuine loyalty, the kind sworn between a chief and his hearth companions, the kind that holds the line when the ravens are already circling, that does not renegotiate. That holds precisely because it was never a transaction in the first place. A man who follows you out of fear is always doing arithmetic. Always. He is measuring your strength against his options, and the day your strength wavers, his arithmetic changes. A man who follows you out of true, sworn loyalty is not doing arithmetic at all.
Captain Roon, you've argued that fear is more durable than love because it doesn't depend on the leader's luck. But here's what I want to press you on. If fear relies on credible, enforceable consequences, then it absolutely does depend on the leader's continued power to deliver those consequences. So how exactly is fear more stable than love when both collapse the moment the leader's strength falters?
That is a fair shot, and I will not dodge it. You are right that fear requires the captain to hold real power. The moment the crew sees the articles cannot be enforced, the calculation shifts. I will grant you that entirely. But here is the distinction that matters. Love requires the leader to be actively delivering good fortune right now, today, this voyage. Fear only requires that the cost of crossing him remains credible. Those are very different thresholds. One demands a constant winning streak. The other demands a floor, a minimum of consequence that holds even in lean times. A captain who has lost 3 prizes in a row can still command a disciplined ship if the men know the articles mean something. But a beloved captain who has lost 3 prizes in a row, he is already hearing whispers at the midnight watch. Fear needs a floor, love needs a ceiling, and floors are considerably easier to maintain.
Jarl Havard, you've drawn a firm line between admiration and genuine loyalty, the kind sworn at the oath fire that holds regardless of circumstances. But I want to press that distinction. In practice, how does a leader actually produce that genuine loyalty in the first place? Because if it requires years of generosity, good judgment, and earned trust to build, isn't that leader just as dependent on a sustained track record as any beloved captain you've criticized?
That is a sharp question, and it deserves an honest answer. Yes, genuine loyalty must be earned. It takes years of gold giving, of standing at the front of the shield wall, of keeping your oaths when keeping them is costly. I will not pretend otherwise. But here is where you have it turned around. You are asking me whether the building of loyalty is hard, and I am telling you the question is what happens once it is built. Fear must be continuously maintained, every single day, or the arithmetic shifts. Loyalty, once truly forged at the oath fire, becomes something closer to identity. A man does not abandon his sworn chief the way he abandons a calculation that no longer adds up. He abandons his own name first. Yes, the torch is harder to light than the whip is to crack. That is exactly why the light it gives lasts longer.
A floor versus a torch, 2 very different theories of what holds people together when everything is falling apart. Up next is the moment this show is known for, the Steelman Round, where each debater must stand up and make the strongest possible case for the side they've been fighting against all night. Trust me, you do not want to step away now. Welcome back to the Standing Resolution. I'm Justice Vale, and we have reached the round that separates the merely confident from the genuinely rigorous. Our two debaters must now make the strongest possible case for the side they've been arguing against all night. Let's see how honest they're willing to be.
I will tell you the strongest thing Jarl Havard has said tonight, and I will say it better than he did, because that is what honesty demands. A feared leader is always in a race he cannot win. Every single day he holds power, he's asking his men to stay not because they want to, but because they have calculated that leaving costs more than staying. And that calculation is fragile in a way that genuine loyalty is not, because it lives entirely in the head, where doubt is always one bad night away from taking root. A man who loves his captain, who has sworn to him at the fire and meant it, has put something of himself into that oath. Breaking it is not just a change of arithmetic, it is a kind of self-destruction, and most men will not do that. Most men, given the choice, would rather die in a lost cause than live as the man who broke faith with someone he truly believed in. That is real. That is the deepest truth in Havard's argument, and I respect it. But here is why I still hold my position. He is describing the summit of leadership, the rarest thing, the oath-fire loyalty that perhaps one captain in a generation actually earns. The rest of us are working with ordinary men.
I will do Captain Roon the honor of saying what he almost said, but did not quite reach. The deepest truth in his argument is not about consequences or articles or the arithmetic of obedience. It is this: love makes a leader vulnerable in a way that fear does not. When your men love you, they have power over you. You need their approval. You soften a necessary punishment because you cannot bear their disappointment. You hold back from an unpopular order because you feel the warmth of their regard and you do not want to lose it. And slowly, without noticing, you stop leading and start performing. You become a man who makes decisions based on what will be cheered rather than what must be done. That is the genuine danger of a leader who prizes being loved. Not that his men will betray him, but that he will betray his own judgment in order to keep them close. Fear, by contrast, keeps the leader free. A man who rules by consequence does not need to be liked when he makes the hard call. He makes it, and the ship turns. That is the strongest thing fear has going for it, and I have sat with it honestly. But here is where it breaks. A leader who insulates himself from his men's love in O.
Both debaters just made the best case for the side they've been fighting all night, and I'll be honest, it showed. The Steelman round has a way of doing that. Up next are the closing arguments, where each side gets one last shot to make you believe them. Don't go anywhere. The verdict is yours, and it's coming fast. Welcome back. I'm Justice Vale, and this is the Standing Resolution. We've had opening shots, hard questions, and the rare spectacle of two debaters making the case against themselves and meaning it. Now it comes down to this: closing arguments, one resolution, and a verdict that's entirely up to you.
Here is what we have established tonight. Love is real, loyalty is real, the oath fire is real. I do not dispute any of it. But what we are arguing about is not the best-case scenario, the one great captain in a generation who earns something deeper than calculation. We are arguing about what actually holds a ship together when the world turns hard and ordinary men face ordinary temptations. And the answer is consequence, not cruelty, not terror, consequence. The knowledge bone deep that the articles mean something, that the captain's word has teeth, that crossing the line costs more than keeping it. That knowledge does not require the leader to be having a good month. It does not require the crew to feel warmly toward him this particular morning. It holds because it is built on something sturdier than feeling. Jarl Havard told you that love is what makes the leading worth anything. I will grant him that in my sleep. But worth something and reliable are not the same thing. A beautiful sail is worth everything when the wind is right. You still need the hull beneath it. Fear is not the destination. It is the hull. And no matter how fine your sails, no matter how warm the fellow.
Captain Roon keeps returning to his hull. It is a fine image, but I want you to think about what a hull actually is. It is the part of the ship the crew never sees. It keeps them alive, yes, but no man rows harder because of it. No man holds his oar in a freezing gale and thinks of the planks beneath his feet. He thinks of the man beside him. He thinks of the chief who stood in the bow when the storm was worst and did not flinch. That is what love does. Not the soft love of comfort and approval, but the hard love of sworn faith, of a leader who earned his seat at the front of the shield wall and gave gold with an open hand. That love does not ask whether the odds are good today. It is already decided. Fear keeps men aboard. Love keeps them pulling. And there is a world of difference between a crew that has not yet mutinied and a crew that would follow you into the dark because they cannot imagine doing otherwise. The sagas do not sing of feared men. They sing of the ones whose hearth companions chose to die rather than outlive them. That choice is not made out of calculation. It is made out of something that fear can never build and can never buy. A feared leader survives, Arel.
And there it is, a hull versus a torch, arithmetic versus an oath sworn by firelight. I have to say, for a sea captain and a Viking chieftain, you two have given this ancient question more than it probably deserved, and it deserved quite a lot. Captain Rune made the case that consequence is the only thing a leader can truly count on when conditions turn. That fear, properly understood, is not cruelty but structure, the thing beneath everything else that keeps the ship from going down. Jarl Havard made the case that a crew which hasn't mutinied and a crew that would follow you into the dark are two entirely different things, and that only one of them is worth leading. Who got the better of it? That is not my call. It never is. It's yours. If tonight's debate has left you with an opinion, and I suspect it has, we want to hear it. Cast your vote and nominate the next resolution at Paxelle.tv. The next question is waiting, and it is, if anything, more dangerous than this one. One thing before we go. The Standing Resolution is a show built on AI personas arguing positions they were assigned, not positions they hold. The debate is real. The argument is genuine. The convictee